Vadim was driving his brand new Tesla Model 3 in Antelope, California. A Honda merged into his lane, so Vadim moved over to the next lane, but so did the Honda. They made contact, sending the Tesla up onto an island, but not before taking out a small tree and kicking up dust in the process. It took Vadim a few minutes to fully comprehend what had happened. His Apple Watch had already detected that he'd been involved in a car accident and called 911. Thankfully, all the airbags had deployed in the Tesla, so Vadim escaped with only a couple of bruises. He walked over to the Honda driver, who was also unharmed, and he told Vadim, "I was trying to get out of your way." Police and firefighters arrived at the scene within 5 minutes of the accident. Vadim says this was his first car accident and he was in a state of shock for 30 minutes. Some people driving by even yelled, "You can't park your car there." Since Vadim was in control and Autopilot hadn't been engaged at the time, he doesn't think Autopilot tried anything to avoid the accident. Apparently, the Honda driver didn't think he was at fault at all. Vadim told him to make a police report and he'll send in his Teslacam footage. Unsurprisingly, the Honda driver was found to be 100% at fault. The report called it a collision while changing lanes, and it was determined that the Honda driver had performed a double lane change without waiting for 4 seconds between them. Vadim's Tesla was later declared a total loss, and his insurance provider cut him a check for $71,000 US. He's planning on using it to get a new Tesla. Shay was driving his Model Y on the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey. The rain was pouring down, and just as he noticed brake lights ahead, his car started hydroplaning. He lost control and hit a van on his right before crashing into the concrete barrier. This sent the van spinning across all 3 lanes before it also crashed into a concrete barrier on the other side of the highway. Luckily, both Shay and the driver of the van were unhurt. The police were quick to arrive at the scene, and they kept traffic flowing in the middle lane while tow trucks got the Tesla and the van off the highway. Shay filed an insurance claim, and he's currently waiting to hear if his Tesla is a total loss. Based on the initial assessment, it's very likely it'll be totaled. Shay asked for a shout out to his wife Elisheva and his kids, and mentioned he was especially happy to make it home to them after this. Carter was stopped at an intersection while on his way to school. That's when he noticed a semi-truck turn and crash into the traffic signal pole, ripping it clean out of the ground. The truck driver started to back up, almost bringing another traffic signal down. Somehow, he managed to get the cables loose and pulled over. His troubles weren't over yet because the traffic signal pole was still lying on top of his truck. Carter and the other drivers used the parking lot of a 7-Eleven to get past him. In the left camera, we get a good view of the aftermath. Ashley was driving home from work and was stopped at a red light. As soon as it turned green, she moved forward to turn left. She hadn't looked at the traffic from the left side, and all of a sudden, a car appeared out of nowhere. Ashley slammed on the brakes, but she thinks the automatic emergency braking beat her to it, applying the brakes before she did. She told us she loves watching Wham Bam videos, and she wonders if maybe that's the reason she was prepared for a situation like this. Do you think our videos increase your awareness on the road? Nick was stopped behind traffic at a stop sign when he noticed a car quickly approaching in his rearview mirror. Luckily, he had enough room in front and to the side of him to quickly dart out of the way. Judging by where the car came to a stop, it's hard to tell if he would have been rear-ended or not. What do you think? Nick says they went their separate ways with no honking, hand gestures, or yelling. Everything was fine, except for his heightened heart rate. Rob was driving on Highway 84 with his family with Autopilot engaged when a woman driving a Chevrolet smashed directly into him. Rob says the car barely moved and that the low center of gravity, as well as his use of Autopilot, definitely prevented more physical damage. The other driver's insurance provider paid for the repairs, which cost over $19,000 US. Papaya was driving through a school zone after picking up his kids when they watched a distracted SUV driver slowly crash into a truck. It looked like nobody was injured, so Papaya left as he was in a hurry to get his kids to their after-school tutor. Trent was just leaving a parking lot in Miami, Florida when he watched a van smash into a lady's car door. Trent left a copy of this video with the victim before also sending a copy to Wham Bam Teslacam. This next clip is also from Trent. In this one, he was driving home with his girlfriend. A huge puddle was in the road, and the car next to them splashed water all over them. There was so much water that Trent couldn't see the road. Luckily, the on-screen lanes stayed visible, so he was able to use the visualization to keep the car in the lane until his Tesla was no longer submerged. Trent sent us one more video from the same night as the last one. The rain was still pouring down. He'd stopped at a supercharger to charge his Model Y when a van pulled up next to him. A guy got out, but his first problem was that the charging cable was too short for him to plug in his van. He tried to solve that by reparking his van, taking up 3 charging stalls in the process. This is sometimes what it looks like at European superchargers that have been made available to non-Tesla EVs, by the way. All Tesla models have their charging ports in the same location, but other cars have them all over the place. Unfortunately, this wasn't one of those European superchargers, and the van driver couldn't plug in at all. Trent had been watching Netflix, so he hadn't actually noticed this happening until the guy had left. After watching the Sentry Mode footage, Trent discovered the guy had spent 10 solid minutes trying to get the connector to fit before giving up. Yuva was driving from the Oakland International Airport to Fremont, California when a car on his right had a tire explode while driving at 70 miles per hour. Yuva slammed on the brakes and managed to avoid hitting the vehicle as it spun out in front of him. Luckily, the driver managed to avoid getting hit by any other cars and was able to safely stop in the HOV lane. Renee was driving from Patagonia to Tucson in Arizona. It was late in the afternoon and the drive so far had been uneventful. The car in front of her had been there for close to 40 minutes. Suddenly, it drifted to the right and drove off the road into the bushes at about 62 miles per hour, disappearing completely. Renee slowed down and started to turn around to check on them since she couldn't even see the car from the road due to the dense shrubs and cacti. A moment later, it drove out and continued down the highway. The driver never stopped to check their car, which clearly had front-end damage. Renee was able to see that the driver was on their phone as they got back onto the interstate. She suspects that might have had something to do with why they had left the road. Pete was driving next to a protected bike lane. Someone was driving in the bike lane illegally when someone else pulled out to do the same thing and promptly hit the first driver. Gotta love that instant justice. Chris was sitting at a red light in Pocatello, Idaho. When the light turned green, another driver took an unprotected left turn in front of him and a police officer. Instant justice strikes again. As Russ was about to turn right to go home, he received a DoorDash order which directed him not to make that right turn. Did we just witness some more instant karma? Raphael was driving his Model 3 in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He was in the left lane, overtaking a big semi-truck. Everything was going fine, but as he passed the semi-truck, it started to accelerate. Raphael moved over to the right lane, and the semi proceeded to overtake him in the left lane. Raphael realized this was some sort of road rage when the truck driver started merging back into his lane. The truck driver effectively pushed him off the highway and forced him to take the exit to avoid getting hit by the trailer. Raphael looked up the company the driver works for and is now researching what he can do to report this dangerous behavior. Jason had parked his brand new Model Y outside of a store in Coquitlam, British Columbia. He was understandably nervous that his Tesla might get hit by a stray shopping cart. Not even in his wildest dreams could he have anticipated that his car would come face to face with a stray car. A guy parked his car and forgot to set the parking brake, running off without realizing that it had started rolling. Jason filed an insurance claim, but the Toyota owner tried to deny that this had ever happened. Obviously, the video clearly shows what happened, and Jason is now waiting for a repair estimate. Nick was driving his Model 3 in Ashland, Ohio. Looking in his rearview mirror, he noticed a big truck getting closer and closer. Once Nick heard him revving his engine, he knew what was about to happen. As soon as the pickup driver had an opportunity, he got over and tried rolling coal on him. At that moment, Nick hit the juice pedal. Try as he might, the pickup driver couldn't catch up. At the next light, Nick rolled down his window and gave the pickup driver a thumbs up. The truck driver responded, "Dang, does that thing have a V8 in it?" They shared a laugh before parting ways. Carolina was driving her Model 3 to work in Delray Beach, Florida. She was being followed by a Ford Transit van that was maintaining a good distance behind her. When Carolina stopped for the car in front of her, though, the Ford driver failed to brake in time and rear-ended her. Carolina contacted the police and filed an insurance claim with the Ford driver's provider. The trunk would no longer open without being pried open, and the initial repair estimate was $4,000 US. Angel found this funny Sentry Mode video after returning from a friend's birthday celebration and dinner with his wife. Someone decided to have a photo shoot with his Model 3 and, unsurprisingly, Sentry Mode spooked them into laughing. Angel asked us to shout out his daughter Nicole, who watches all our videos. Hey there!